Andy. Here to talk to you today about your book, No Oil in the Lamp, Fuel Faith and the Energy Crisis. There's a lot in that book, and I just want you to know that I really enjoyed reading it. So one of the things that I found really interesting was you spoke about 5 different reasons why Christians tend not to get interested in environmental things. And I'm wondering if you'd like to talk about that a little bit and unpack it for us. What are some of the reasons?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think from my experience anyway, over here in England and my knowledge of churches, it seems to me that in general environmental issues and green issues are fairly peripheral to most Christians and to most churches. They don't seem to form part of the mainstream agenda.
That's true here in Canada as well, in general.
Yeah, and I think there's various reasons for that. And I think one of the reasons is looking back in our interpretation of the Bible, in particular the verse in Genesis 1:28, where in the creation story, God gives dominion over the earth to humankind.
Right.
Or certainly that word is used in some of the old translations. And I think that is the source of a problem, because some people have seen that as being, kind of carte blanche for us to do what we like with creation. I don't see it that way, and I think it's certainly one of the ways in which perhaps we've gone astray.
I agree. It seems like when we dominate something, we feel like we have all the power over it, and it just needs to bow down and be our slave. So.
Yeah, I mean, certainly humankind, have been blamed. Christians have been blamed for that kind of way of thinking by people like Professor Ellen White, who has our understanding of this verse is the kind of root of the despoiling of the environment.
Right, and we were having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we're going to try and work through it here. So what would you say would be the second area that seems to cause problems for Christians?
Well, the other thing is, I think that, the people who espouse kind of environmental concerns, green concerns, sometimes have been on the kind of flaky New Age end of the spectrum. And that means that Christians have kind of been averse to those concerns because they feel that the New Age kind of thinking goes along with the package. The New Age guys are thinking about these things and campaigning on them, therefore it shouldn't be part of our agenda.
Right, it's like we're worshipping Mother Earth instead of worshipping God through it.
Yeah, in some ways. Certainly some of those guys who are campaigning on environmental issues have some fairly wacky, ideas. Certainly worshipping nature is part of the agenda for them, and then that can turn Christians off.
Which is understandable, but still. So your third topic here is a narrow focus of what the church does and what they consider, good theology. Yeah,
I think we've tended to sort of focus really on the personal kind of morality angle instead of looking at the kind of gospel as a kind of holistic thing. But even if you look at kind of a key verse for evangelicals like John 3:16, it talks about God so loved the world, and the word there I think is cosmos, which means the whole of kind of creation, the whole of the created order. So we need to be thinking wider than just saving souls. We need to be thinking about the renewal of creation. I think that's what God's plan is, and if we just focus narrowly on kind of getting converts, we've missed part of the story.
Have you ever read the book Heaven by Randy Alcorn?
I haven't read that one, no, sorry.
I think you'd probably enjoy it because it really opened my eyes a lot as to what he unpacks the idea of heaven and the new heaven and the new earth in a way that really resonated with me, and I think it might with you as well.
Okay.
So the fourth item, what do you figure is the fourth reason that Christians tend to avoid environmental concerns?
Well, I think sometimes people can get a bit confused with their theology about the end times, and people get very focused on, one particular sort of interpretation of what might happen when God wraps
Right.
up time, and therefore sort of environmental concerns about the earth kind of get lost. People think, well, the planet's been destroyed. That's great, bring it on. That's Jesus is coming.
Right.
But I don't think is a great interpretation of what the Bible's saying. And you've only got to think of the impacts of environmental destruction on the poor and the marginalised around the world to realise that, loving our neighbour could not mean, welcoming climate change by any means.
Right. And then your fifth, your final point really kind of hit home for me as well. What was that?
Well, I think it's just a question that, we've kind of bought the dream of materialism just as much as anyone else. Christians live the same kind of lifestyle as everyone else. And somehow we think that the lifestyle we have, which is using up the planet, which is damaging creation, is God ordained. And I don't think it is, because if everybody around the planet lived as we do, we would use everything up.
Yeah, it wouldn't take long then, would it, for everything to collapse completely?
Yeah, and the trouble is we're selling that dream to people. People are aspiring to live as we do, and it's just all sources that God's given us.
So we've had 5 reasons why Christians tend not to be interested in environmental things. Can you give me one good one why they should be?
One good one? Well, I think because God is concerned about the environment. I think God loves his creation. I think he's given us some responsibility over it, and being good stewards of creation, which is looking after what he's given us, he's got to be a key part of loving him and following him and serving him.
I agree. I've sometimes said that taking care of God's creation is an act of worship. It's something that we can do to basically tell God that we love him and want what he wants.
Yeah, I agree with that, absolutely.
So thanks very much for sharing this time with us, Andy, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, great. Thanks, Valerie.